but I'm looking around and there's no bed. How do you have a suite with no bed? So I'm like, okay, do I not know where to look for the bed? And so what they do here is they give you a connecting room that has the bed in it. So, but this actual room, I've been looking around and I see nothing. So I'm like, this is just like a conference room that they call a suite. Okay. And then I look into the wall. It's a Murphy bed.
I knew it. I was going to ask that question. Is it a Murphy bed?
It's a Murphy bed. I thought this was like an armoire or something. I thought I was going to like open it up and it was going to be like a closet. That's the bed. There it is.
Oh, no. Oh, no, a Murphy bed. Yeah, that's like when you get suckered into staying at the Ace Hotel in New York City because they got a good coffee shop in the lobby. And then it turns out that you have to share a bathroom down the hall. And you don't want to be doing that.
Let me tell you something.
It's very European.
Say it with me now, guys. You guys are grown-ups. You travel for work. Marriott, Bonvoy. Join that M gang.
No.
Throw up those M's.
No, man. I mean, I like differentiation, okay? No. I like every city to give me its flavor. I don't want the cookie cutter, Marriott, Bonvoy in every city.
Take care of me. Upgrade me to rooms that have regular beds and bathrooms of their own. That's what I want.
Well, I'm at a Hyatt because I'm a Hyatt guy. And I think I can tell this story very quickly. The reason why I'm a Hyatt guy is because in 1998, when I got on the Oakland A's beat at the San Jose Mercury News, I had never done any of this. It was my first beat. And as it turns out, the reason why everybody on the beat was Hyatt American Airlines instead of United Marriott, like everybody else in baseball, was because one guy, the San Francisco Examiner's Frank Blackman, was a United Marriott guy, and they all hated him. They disliked him so much they didn't want to share cabs with him. Wow. So everybody else went Hyatt American, so they wouldn't have to go to the same terminal. And I have been a Hyatt guy ever since, lifetime, over and over again, all because they hated Frank Blackman that much.
What a ripple effect!
May he rest in peace.
We should actually tell our favorite beat reporting mistakes, rookie beat reporting mistakes. Well, I mean, or you could be like the first time you're on the road with the team or something, because mine is absolutely when the Pistons, I was covering the Sixers, Pistons are still playing in Auburn Hills, and I was pretty young on the beat. I was 27, and no one else on the Sixers beat really wanted to help me that rookie year. To the point, I'm super shocked by that in retrospect. Biggest mistake I made was assuming that the Pistons played downtown. So I fly into the airport, I get a hotel downtown, I take a cab downtown, so I spend 3 hours in a cab that day when I land in Detroit. I mean, to me, in retrospect, the fact that no one flagged for me, that Auburn Hills is 55 minutes outside of downtown.
North.
Yes.
I gotta say, it's huge. That's good. I don't know if I can come anywhere close to topping that one. I mean, Kate, they do call it the Palace at Auburn Hills.
Yeah, and I just thought maybe Auburn Hills is like a little neighborhood like a mile from downtown.
But it was like a mall.
It's like a Greenwich Village. It's just like this little part of Detroit.
So if you were covering an Angels game, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, you'd be an hour away from the stadium.
A 27-year-old me definitely would have done that. Yes.
It's the ride from Detroit Wayne Airport to Auburn Hills. You got to take 75. It goes right up the gut of Detroit, and you can see urban blight on either side of you as you're driving up. It is a drive that I will never forget, man, because it's like, and this is what it looks like when a city dies. I'm just saying. Well, they're back now, right?
But I will say the Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown episode on Detroit was very inspiring and very cool. I do.
What year was it? Was it like?
I remember, I think it was early 2000s, mid 2000s.
Okay.
I would check that out.
So before the real crash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or after, depending on how much crash we're talking about.
Do we all agree that the baseball beat is by far the worst beat in all of sports?
The best.
The best. You go to a city, you spend 3-4 days in the city, you're looking around, you like so many times in basketball or NBA, like you're in there and you gotta go. We gotta go to the next one. But like Howard, correct me if I'm wrong. You get to enjoy these cities in the summertime. It's not even a winter thing. So you're walking around, Atlanta or walking around Baltimore or on the waterfront. You're
Yeah.
enjoying everything that these cities have to offer.
Well,
Really?
I will say that it depends on your perspective. There's a reason why the baseball beat is called the divorce beat, because you
Mhm.
are really gone the whole year. I mean, 45 days in spring training, and then the whole season. If you've got a good team, you're gone till early October if your team makes the playoffs. So, from that standpoint, the NFL is by far the best beat, because the NFL is as close to a 9 to 5 job as you can have if you're a family person. You're only on the road pretty much one day, and you're back.
And that's only happens 8 to 10 times a year.
Exactly. However, it is true. You do get to hang out. Like, I used to tell everybody that I had been to Seattle like 25 times in my life and it's never rained. And I thought it was because I was special. No, dummy. It's because you're there in the summertime. It starts raining in October. I was like, what's the big deal about Seattle? It never rains here. It's gorgeous. Right. So there's that. The biggest mistake I made on the beat was first year on the beat, 1998. The A's are in Kansas City and we're staying at in the Rafael Plaza, which I believe at the time was a Ritz-Carlton. It was May 98. I had a cold and I ordered some orange juice. I ordered a pitcher of orange juice from room service. Anybody want to guess how much that was on the bill?
I'm gonna guess $38 because it was 98.
You got to do the Stugotz and say $315.
The $78.
Wow.
Whoa.
In
I was
1998?
78. Yeah.
In
$78 for a
1998.
pitcher of orange juice. And my goodness, did I try to find some way to hide that, because I was like, this can't come out of my pocket, can it?
Actually, the biggest mistake I ever made, speaking of things like orange juice, was I went to cover the World Cup in 2010, and this is when you would have had like a hotspot that they paid for, and they send you with not just your cell phone, but like this hotspot, and I just used it for 17 straight days, and they called me frantically, and the bill was $3,200.
Oh yes, I
for
did
my
that.
data.
I did that twice. I did that once at spring training with the Boston Herald, back in the day when everybody was frantically downloading because Napster was about to fall apart, and LimeWire when they were all going down. So I was like doing the frantic download, and I left it plugged in to dial up, and I covered a game. I came back, the bill was like $700. The same thing happened when I went to the Winter Olympics 2010 in Vancouver, leaving the country. Remember, you are in a foreign country, even when you're in Vancouver, and I didn't have whatever AT&T international data plan. I got a $3,600 bill. And then when I played my case, this young lady on the phone said, oh, well, why don't I just retroactively give you the international plan?
Right.
And so retroactively giving me this plan changed a $3,400 bill. It was like $60. And I was like, whose money did you just spend? How did this happen?
Yes.
Who did this?
So it's all a scam. Thank you for revealing it to us.
It's all a scam. It is all a scam.
I want to say, I got a couple of stories. Mine aren't about getting overcharged, but just dumb things I did. And I can't even blame it on being a rookie. Just sometimes you forget. I was scouting, and I went to Syracuse to go watch them practice. And I parked outside the practice facility, and I forgot to lock the door. And someone came and stole the Garmin GPS thing that you remember. There was a time where there was a GPS on our phones. You had to either print out directions, or you bought one of these things for $150 from Best Buy, and you had it kind of like a cab driver, and they stole it out the car. I was so upset because I was like, it's the practice facility. Like, how is this possible, right? And then fast forward maybe 7 years later, 6 or 7 years later, I'm in Oakland for the finals, and we're doing a live show for Count the Dings, And so I parked downtown Oakland, well-lit street. Everything was cool. I parked my car there, and I had all my stuff in the trunk. I had my laptop, had my iPad, and most importantly, we had gone to Lucasfilm that day. And I went to the Lucasfilm gift shop, and I bought all of this stuff that was kind of cast and crew overflow stuff that they didn't know what to do, so they got rid of it by selling in the gift shop. I bought gifts and everything, and they were all in the trunk of that car. And someone smashed the glass, popped the trunk, and stole everything. And I didn't care about the laptop or my personal iPad or any shit, but I was so pissed about that Lucasfilm stuff. I was like, man, the only thing I had was this bubble vest from episode 7 for crew. And the only reason it survived the purge was because I had it on. I was so happy about it.
It was the only thing exactly. It was the only thing that survived. You were the vest is like the bolt of lightning on your forehead. It was the boy who lived.
Oh man.
There's a little Harry Potter crossover.
Harry Potter, yeah.
Not paying attention to that.
No, I got it. No, is tennis a beat? Are there people who only do tennis?
Covering the majors, I don't think tennis is ever really a beat. And it's funny because we were talking about this, and we've all been to ESPN, and we all sort of know what moves the needle. And it's always disappointed me, but I know the truth, right? Tennis does not move the needle. However, I love covering the sport. And it is really interesting when you're covering a tennis tournament, how many people you've never seen before. Usually we all overlap. We're all in the same business. Nobody covers. You got into the US Open or Wimbledon before you see any reporter that you may have actually seen on like at a baseball game or a football game or something.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. I love the idea of like that. I feel like that happens at every kind of sport. If you're covering the sport and then you get to a certain event and then you look around like, who are all these people? Where'd you all show up?
A whole nother ecosystem of reporters here that
yes, exactly.
we don't get the NFL or the NBA.
It's like a different high school or something, and you see everybody, you're like, oh, weird. They have their own hierarchy. Who's the big shot in this hierarchy?
Right. It's so strange. But I will say the best beat is either tennis or golf, because for the longest time they were daytime sports. You were done. No three, except for the US Open where you get these matches that end at 2 a.m. But for the most part, you're in and out, and that was especially true. And think about it. Tennis, you get to go to London, New York, Melbourne, and Paris.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Kind of tough to beat.
Even by the way, even the secondary ones in tennis. You talk about Indian
Palm
Wells,
Springs,
Madrid,
Indian Wells, or exactly.
Miami.
Charleston's
Open.
got a good one with women.
Jeez, that's a life right there.
No, exactly.
Is it too late to switch?
No, it's never too late. The other thing too is that as we have this pod and as we wrap this up, I don't know if offended is the right word, because I don't feel offended, but it is sort of interesting when you have a deep interest in something that doesn't move the needle, but that doesn't mean it's not important. It doesn't mean it's like I know that if we were only going to cover stuff at ESPN that moved the needle, we'd be covering Duke, Carolina, and Red Sox and Yankees, and that would be it, right? So I tried not to apologize for like really loving the ATP and the WTA. And of course, people will look at you and go, what are you covering that for? Because it's great stuff. And I kind of enjoy with Brian Koppelman. I enjoy being sort of a tennis evangelist, because then when you bring people to the matches, it is a great sport. It's amazing to watch. The athletes are phenomenal. The sport itself is terrific. But Kate, you deal with this all the time in the women's sports, part of the world as well. How do you feel, when you sort of have to be the walking chamber of commerce for the sport that supposedly nobody watches?
Well, it's like this added layer that you have to talk about before you get to the actual sport itself. And sometimes you never get through the added layer. The only time you're given is enough time to talk about why you don't talk about it. talk about why you should be talking about it. Talk about all of the friction that exists for this particular sport, whether in my case it's like every women's sport or tennis, and you're like fighting to get through to the actual stuff, like the actual storylines, but it's hard to ever get there because everyone's like, oh, look, you got 3.5 minutes to talk about this because really we're going to do mostly everything else, and it feels like you can never get to the heart of it.
Well, that's right. Well, I remember my editor, like I said, when I was at the magazine, used to say all the time, if it wasn't race and it wasn't the Williams sisters, we're not taking it. You can write it for .com, but not going in the magazine. That, we've only got X number of magazines, of back pages, and that space is too important to be going off on your little niche sport. And I'm like, well, what? Roger Federer is not a niche. Rafael Nadal, these are the greatest players of all time. No interest.
It's funny because, Howard, you described yourself and Brian Koppelman as a kind of evangelist for this sport. And I don't think you could find two more ignorant people than Kate and I.
That's right. Wait till we anchor this episode you're about to hear, everybody. And I'm not sure if I mean anchor as in like weigh it down or steady it. You decide.
Right. I just love the fact, Kate, how many times do you have to, like when you're trying to talk about something compelling that you know is important and interesting, and the person you're talking to is looking at you like, who's that? Who's that? Who's that?
Or what's a 4-5?
Exactly.
Our version of it.
Yeah.
And don't ask me to explain tennis scoring because I'm not going to. And on that note, next week we want to talk about some other stuff, like maybe Mike Krzyzewski making $12.4 million in 2020.
It's a good opportunity to transition into phase 2 of this conversation because Amin had a King Richard question, which is?
All right, so we watched King Richard as a group, and we critiqued it, and we found it very, sanitized, obviously, because of the influences of Venus and Serena. And so I ask you, Brian, the question: can you tell the story of someone if that someone is a major stakeholder in the production? Meaning,
that authorized thing is really difficult. No,
right.
I wouldn't. If David and I wouldn't do. I can't think of a scenario in which we do it. For instance, when we made the Jimmy Connors documentary, Jimmy participated, but he had to participate with the understanding that he had no editorial voice at all, zero editorial voice. And if that meant he didn't want to promote it, we were willing to live with that. And that was the arrangement that we came to. I don't really see how to do that in a way that enables you to tell the full story. Look, I'm glad people got so much out of the movie. I think if it's even possible, I think Serena and Venus are still underrated in the world. We're talking about GOATs here, the greatest of all time. What both of them accomplished. I'm a tennis fanatic, maybe all the time that I would have given to baseball. I give to tennis, and I've watched it my whole life. I worked at the US Open as a kid. I'm super involved. What they did is, what Richard Williams did, and then what the two of them did, what they had to face, there's really not a parallel in modern American sports since Jackie Robinson. So it's the way people rooted against them, the language around them. Just go read articles. And so any way that movie could get made, I'm happy that the movie got made. Maybe in 25 years, someone will tell the sort of unvarnished story, more
yeah, well, it's so funny. Along these lines, when we're talking about how do you tell stories, and today we are moving in this show, we talk about this all the time as well, about the power of the athlete, how the player is now recognizing just how much juice they really have. And so when you're watching a show, the Magic Johnson documentary with Magic Johnson's input on Apple, I don't think he's an EP on it, but he's got enormous input. It's his doc. And ditto for The Last Dance, ditto for all of them. And the same is true. I was talking to Bomani about this when I was watching, I think it was the HBO, was it HBO or Showtime, the documentary last year on Tina Turner. And he was like, nobody has controlled their personal narrative like Tina Turner. And I think you brought up the best point so far in this program of when we're watching these shows, we're immediately like hitting the computer while it's happening, like while we're watching, to figure out how much of this went. I didn't know she had a child before any of this. I mean, and you're watching this, and I've been watching Tina Turner for 40 years.
They didn't cover that, and what's love got to do with it?
Exactly. And so the same questions that we're having about a dramatization like Winning Time, we're having the exact same conversations when you're looking at the authorized, sanitized version of their best selves.
For sure. It's so funny that Bomani and I went deep on text yesterday about Waylon Jennings' album. So he has an incredible catholicity of taste. That guy knows everything about everything. It's just amazing. I love him, but it's incredible. Like he could go super deep on Tina and on Waylon Jennings, which is, not that many people have both in their back pocket like Bomani does. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think about this documentary. I love this documentary on David Geffen that was on Netflix. And I loved it. It gives you such a portrait, but then at the end you see Mr. Geffen was involved in some way. And I'm certainly a fan of everything that guy's done, but one does wonder what would the documentary that he wasn't involved with also showcase.
No, that's how I felt about the Defiant ones, about the Jimmy Iovine Dr. Dre doc a few years ago as well.
I loved that. I did love it.
So did I.
I loved all parts of it. But look, when there are Medicis, I mean, you're really asking a question. Anytime there are Medicis involved, the art has changed in some way, and there are always Medicis. So it's always difficult. It's always a difficult question.
Tennis time.
We're good. It is. Are you checking out, Kate? Are you hanging in? Or are you checking out?
For the tennis talk? Yeah, I mean, I will only drag you down by asking who. What?
We are gonna go by asking, but it's. Let me put it this way. When you brought up Alcaraz, Brian, there is a moment that we all have, and I'm sure, Kate, when you were coming up, same thing, where you saw an athlete and you were like, bang, that's the one, right? Yeah. And obviously, the greatest example of that, to my mind, feel free to argue because I'm using a superlative, is LeBron. Everybody forecast what LeBron was going to be. He has met and exceeded everything that people said he was going to be when he was 12 years old. And now you've got this kid Alcaraz. People are comparing him to people who have won a combined 60 majors. He hasn't reached a final yet of a Grand Slam. Now, I mean, what are we putting on him while at the same time recognizing that 100% this kid's got the goods?
You're asking Kate?
I'm asking you.
I hope not.
I'm asking you because you said he's going to end up being the greatest player any of us have ever seen.
I think if he stays healthy, well, someone brought up the other day, if he stays healthy and if he can handle the spotlight and all the things that come with that kind of thing.
Otherwise known as two enormous ifs for a 19-year-old.
Those are big ifs for a 19-year-old. Like what happens when he's as famous as those, Joker lost 2 years to those personal issues that he had.
Sure did.
Which are the kinds of issues that happen to young stars, right?
And was already late. He didn't win his second major until 2011.
And did the two of you know the personal issues with Djokovic? They were, he and his wife had a difficult moment. So when all that stuff starts coming to Alcaraz, who knows? But what's amazing about him is that, yes, it's like the other two, I think, in our lifetime like that were, Venus was one in a way, meaning some of the establishment didn't know, but if you knew, I mean, David Foster Wallace wrote that book, The Year of Venus Williams and Infinite Jest, like long before Venus became Venus. So people knew, I think, that Venus was going to be a Grand Slam champion. And I think we knew Tyson was going to be Tyson.
Yeah.
I mean, we knew when he started, it was very clear. And for me as a kid, Sugar Leonard.
Kareem.
We also know, Paige Beckers, guys, if we can throw in some women's sports here, we know she's going to be the next big thing. I think this is.
And Holtzclaw. No, Shamiko Holtzclaw.
Holtzclaw.
Like there was no doubt Shamiko Holtzclaw was going to be like the best player in the WNBA, and Taurasi too, right? I mean, you knew that from when they were young. There have been a couple of those examples, but maybe I didn't know about Shamika when she was in high school. I think is maybe you did. I knew about her.
She was huge.
She was the best, like, and I say this with no exaggeration. She was the best player to come out of New York City high school, male or female. She was the best high school basketball player.
Better than Marbury and Bernard
Better than
King
Marbury,
and Albert?
better than Kareem, better than Bernard King, better than all of them. She
I
was
just remember the first year at Tennessee watching that's like Ohtani. That's what got me watching women's basketball. That's why I'm telling you guys to watch Ohtani. That Tennessee team is what got me that Tennessee team is what got me watching. So it's like the
3 makes, okay.
That's what got me watching women's basketball. It was like, what the fuck is this? I would watch the highlights and I'd be like, wait, what the fuck? And I just started watching because Pat Summitt and Shamika Holtzclaw was like, well, this is the greatest. This is like, I got to watch. And I watched every Tennessee game that she played, just about, because how could you not? It was just better than everything else.
Yeah.
And
I was
that
such
is
a
what Ohtani's like.
crazy basketball fan as a kid, 7th, 8th grade, whatever year it was. And I remember reading, all of those different trade mags, Street and Smith and 5 Star and all those recruiting magazines and everything else. And I remember when you were talking to me about New York City basketball, they were talking about Pearl Washington saying he could play in the NBA in high school. Mm-hmm. And it was so funny watching what he became, right? Because he wasn't even a very good NBA player, but
he's an average player.
Yeah. I mean, it was just, but it's amazing when you have those players at one stage that everybody is forecasting.
Felipe Lopez.
Exactly. Felipe Lopez was another one, right? Yeah, and also, and to Brian's point, Richard, everybody said, Richard said it first, Serena's going to be better than Venus. She's coming.
Yeah.
And talk about finding the way to make that happen. I mean, it wasn't always a straight line, but he was right.
He was. So the thing about Alcaraz that's fascinating, there have been a couple of these. Look, it's fun to actually have the two of you here because most of the audience doesn't really know tennis. It's the sad thing about tennis right now. But there's this other kid named Sinner. And like for a while last year, it seemed like Sinner was going to do this.
Yeah.
Sinner was projected, and he still may win Grand Slams. He probably will win Grand Slams. But the two of them are these young kid Sinners from Italy, Alcaraz from Spain.
Yannick Sinner, the redheaded Italian.
Yeah, you would never know. Looking at him, he does not seem like he's from Italy in any way, but he is. But Alcaraz you've watched this year. I think what's been so fun to watch, if you watch Tennis Channel, like I just watch at night, every night before bed. If you watch Tennis Channel, you've just seen him start to believe it. And watching an athlete start to believe it is one of the greatest things. And over the last, 4 months, maybe, Howard, he's really started to see
I can beat
that he can
everybody.
Beat that he's better than everybody. It's that thing of like, well, I think I can.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's like, oh, look at that. I can go backhand to backhand with Joker and I can win the backhand to backhand rally. Oh, look at that. I can go forehand to forehand with Rafa and I can win the rally.
Exactly.
I can chase
that
down.
Coming of age moment is unbelievable when you see it because you're talking about world-class ability. I remember back in the day, remember when Bernard King was wearing splints on both hands?
I really do.
I was going to remember that. And I remember he did an interview when he was just killing everybody. He had that 18-month streak where he was just demolishing everybody and everything. And I remember he gave an interview and he said, people keep asking me about this hot streak. Why is it a hot streak? He's like, I'm not having a hot streak. Maybe I've elevated to a place where I understand what I can do. And I thought that was pretty awesome.
Well, that's amazing to me because he was a man of very few words. I mean, he was not a great interview, Bernard, generally. Mm-hmm. I'm amazed that he said all that. By April 27th, 1984 was my 18th birthday, and that was the night of the Isaiah Thomas versus Bernard game.
Ooh,
when
in the playoffs.
Isaiah scored the 16. My friends and I, my big 18th birthday celebration was watching that game and then going and playing pickup touch football in a parking lot till 2 a.m. But I remember that game and Bernard just so.
I remember, of course, because they were going up. Then they played the Celtics, and I remember Cedric Maxwell saying, "Bernard has scored his last 40. We're gonna stop the bitch," and he scored 40 twice out of the 7 games. And so
Yeah, but you guys still won.
no, Larry. Somebody had to show you who the MVP was.
Those annoying things. But to go back to tennis, my question to you is, we do have like 5 Americans in the top 50, male Americans in the top 50.
Okay. And can I stop you right there?
Why? Yeah.
I can, because I need to know why this is important to you. This is a great moment for me. I am such an, I'm not a nationalist when I watch tennis. I want to ask you, how important is it to you that Americans be good? When we talk about tennis has a tennis problem?
It's important to me that tennis be a sport that, so for me, tennis, what's so great about it as a tennis player is that it's all the best things of playing golf and playing basketball. And those are the other sports I love to play, right? I was never great at either, but I played varsity basketball and I played varsity tennis, right? I've never stopped playing those. But basketball, tennis, you have to have all of the mental shit you have to play golf well. And you have to be able to do everything physically you have to do to play basketball. And so I don't understand why golf and basketball both, and yes, golf's a niche sport too, but there are 100 golf podcasts that are popular. Golf fans are fanatical and evangelical. And Tiger is what caused the modern resurgence of that. And so we need a great American so that people in America understand. You know, I want there to be many more tennis players, man.
We need a great American man.
Match. Yeah, I said that. I said American male in the top 50.
Yeah.
Well, for whatever reason, which I'm sure whatever reason, Serena and Venus did not galvanize a huge outpouring of like male tennis players in the country or women in the country, really. I want there to be so many tennis players that like I can always find a 4 or 5 to play against on a Saturday. You know what I mean?
Humble brag. Humble brag alert right there.
I didn't say 5-0.
Yeah, don't even know what that is.
You're gonna go look.
Did I say 5-0?
Did you say? Look, I'm just wondering if there's a 4 or 5. Like, come on, we're all Jesus.
That's some tennis lingo happening.
It's inside tennis.
Poznansky.
Tennis.
Poznansky talked really big on Twitter that he was going to beat me. He came to New York. Just ask him where I am. Ask him what level tennis player.
No, I know what level you're at. Because you know why I know you can play? Because you asked me what level I could play, and I told you I played 4-0, and you said, yeah, I'm a 4-5. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get my ass kicked when we play.
This is why Kate and I self-selected out of the conversation because
I'm going to get what the fuck is a 4-5? And I got off the phone and I was like, what? I thought Brian was a nice guy. Why is he trying to kick my ass? Why didn't he just say, "Oh, we'll go out and have a nice hit"? It was like, no,
we will.
When we play,
is what he said.
I'm going to destroy you.
No, the truth is 4-5 and 4-0s have. We'll have a very good match. You could win. You could likely win.
I could win.
You'll probably win.
Yeah.
Right?
You'll probably win the match. But, okay, it's important to me to have an American because why are people who are so culturally hip and aware and love sports like Kate and Amin, they don't give a shit about tennis. And if you had an American male tennis, if you had an American tennis player who was kicking ass, although, I don't know, like Korda, do you guys watch golf for Korda? Do you watch... Like, how much do you watch LPGA? Either of you?
Golf or sister Korda?
I refuse. I refuse to watch golf.
I hate golf so much.
Like tennis, I'm just dumb.
Are you guys aware though that there's this American woman who's like the best in the world now?
Aware, but not following directly.
Zero awareness.
Zero awareness.
Zero awareness.
Wait, this is the first
Annika
you heard of this?
Annika Sorenstam is the last LPGA.
I'm thinking about
Michelle Wee, right?
That's where I'm at.
Yes.
I mean, but seriously,
Michelle Wee speaks to that question about Alcaraz because she was. I love Michelle Wee. She's incredible. She won a major. She delivered. She's had an incredible golfing life, but everyone thought she was going to be the best to ever live.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
she won one major and had a great career, but did not become the best to ever live.
No, exactly. Well, I think for me, to your point, Brian, that one of the reasons why this doesn't resonate, and I think it's bullshit that it doesn't resonate, that we have to. Okay, we were the top of the top. We're not the top of the top anymore, right? I mean. This sport has shifted. It used to be an American, British, Australian game. It's not anymore. And when I was coming up, it was Jimmy Connors and McEnroe and Billie Jean King early, and then Sampras and Agassi. That's done. But the women are still there. They've had a straight line. They've had a straight line since the 60s. Still. Even before that.
But it is wild that we don't cover the sport. Like, okay, the best player in a sport retires at 25. Ash Barty. Amin definitely doesn't know. And maybe Kate has heard that that's the case but
He's like a 5-0, right?
She's like would be like
she's like a 7-0. She's the number one player in the world.
I don't even know
But
the
she
metrics of
You guys
that,
still
so
haven't explained to us what a 4-5 or
I thought
5-0.
5-0 was the best you could be. That sounds like
5-0
really
is a
good.
college tennis.
5-0 is a college player.
Tennis, a real college tennis player. Like some college tennis players might not quite be 5-0 at some D3 schools, but basically, if you're a college tennis player,
If you're a
5-0.
D1 player, you're a 5-0 plus.
Okay.
Yeah, you might be a 5-5 or something like that. But it changed, like, because why it's weird is if you read the descriptions, everyone who's played for their whole life is a 5-0, but because it's like you can hit shots off both sides, just not the way it works in real.
So does
life.
somebody come to your
tennis-
town and assess you and be like a home inspection, and they're like, you're like a 5-0?
Well,
Right.
when you if you go to a tennis place and then they want to match you up with people,
You'll know.
Someone will have to hit with you and
Yeah,
go,
you'll know.
all right, I'm going to put you against the 4-0 and then you'll play that match, and then that'll sort of like
It'll bore you,
determine it.
and you'll go up higher if you're
Yeah,
Brian.
you'll play somebody who can't hit the
No,
ball back four
a
times
young
in a row,
fo-
and
no,
that's
like,
that.
Again, I'm 56. If I play against a 23-year-old, like very athletic 4-0, obviously they could beat me because I'm the age I am. But I can play. I play all the time. I play 5 days a week.
Yeah. Yep.
I just play whenever I can because eventually my knees are going to just fall off of me, and then I'm going to be done. It's just golf. Then it's just golf.
But this is actually an interesting conversation to me, not the specifics of like which players, because I don't know them, but my entire professional career has been trying to answer the question of why nobody will care about, right?
X,
Whether it's
Yes.
Mhm.
the WNBA or the women's Final Four or whatever, women's national soccer team, which they've cleared the hurdle. Like my whole life has been spent trying to understand the dynamics that leave us in this place where nobody's caring about this thing that when I pay attention to it, I'm like, this is fucking interesting. The storylines are great. The game is great. The dynamics are great. So I am fascinated and there probably are some parallels between where we're at with men's tennis and the WNBA or certain women's sports in terms of like stakes and storylines and how we disseminate information about them and rally people to care.
And it's so fascinating. Like obviously tennis, I think part of the issue is the elitism that people impute. People believe it's an elitist sport.
Yes.
And like Tiger somehow made people understand that somebody who came up and broke the elitist system and kind of like told those elitists to go fuck themselves by winning at the most elite place in the world, the first major, like that had this galvanizing effect in a way to make people pay attention to golf. But tennis feels elitist still to people, I think. Yes. And it feels kind of a feed for some reason. That's why I'm saying like people don't understand the level of athlete you have to be. But also, Kate, like I've just seen this. So I really for a long time played a lot of competitive basketball. And I mean, I would see what happened when a woman who was really good would enter a game. I'm sure you've written about it, but the dynamics are so strange because men do control like the way sports stories are told by and large. And I mean, I'm sure you've seen the experience. Like I've had many D1 players like show up in a run, women, and like it's just crazy. The first 15 minutes are just like a kind of proving ground that you never see. And it's like this same psychodrama plays out over and over again.
Yeah.
I won't call you just see it. And it's very complicated, like why people want to assert that a story has to be, the story of sport has to be this one thing, and people's masculinity is just on the line all the time about it. I just witnessed it a bunch of times up close.
Yeah.
And in tennis it shows up. Like I play with guys. Okay, the 5-0 question. Here's what a 5-0 is: someone who couldn't take a point off of Serena Williams. And yet, if you ask the average dude who plays a lot of tennis, they think that they could get like a game off. They could get a game. No, like they think they could get games. Like
games?
They think they could get a game. Like I know guys who think they could get a game off Serena. Yeah, well, if I serve well. And it's just like, listen, you could not get. I had this thing on Billions. We had Maria Sharapova come and hit with Damian Lewis. It's on the show. And Damian's really good at tennis. Like he's like us. He's played a lot. He's a real tennis player. Like he's just played a lot. You know what I mean? And I'm the distinction between 4 and 4-5. Who cares? All the same. So he would. But so I'm watching them play, and when they're just hitting, it feels like, oh, look at this. They're all hitting. But I needed for the show, I needed Sharapova to put a ball away, right? That's basically the scene. So we're filming them, and like it just literally didn't matter. So we're filming, and I'm standing off to the side of the court, and no matter where Damian hits it, he's trying to hit, but let's say he accidentally hits it into the corner, and she's got to run for the ball. At any moment, if for the show, I shouted to her, put it away. Like one step, boom.
Done. Game over.
Wow.
Gone.
That
Damian
is the
couldn't touch
fundamental difference. When you play somebody
That's
who can
the
really
difference.
play, they can take a rally ball and finish it whenever the fuck they want.
Whenever
Whenever they want. I played a
Whenever
guy
they want.
once, and I was, he was waiting for his guy to show up, and he was 5+, and asked me
Yes.
to hit with him because his partner was late. And I'm like,
Sure.
great. And we're hitting and hitting and hitting, and boom. I'm like, but then hit, boom, whenever they want. And I was like,
Whenever they want.
Whenever
And
they want.
watching that, it was so great because, yes, like I said, worked at tennis. I've been around it so closely. I'm really aware of the difference. But when you watch it, it's just like people just have no conception, I guess, because they don't play and because when we go out there, the ball feels like it's going, when you're playing, the ball feels like it's going faster. You're running for a ball. You're out of breath. So you think, I'm having rallies that are just like their rallies. But you're not.
No.
everybody
you're
should
not.
go to the U.S.
not.
Open. I always say the greatest deal in sports was going to the U.S. Open. $60 grounds pass, and you're watching top 10 players. I mean, it's unbelievable. And virtually every person I've ever spoken with who had an idea of what tennis was, especially thinking that it was some sort of, wimpy sissy sport or whatever they want to call it, then they sit up close and the ball's going 130 miles an hour off the serve, and they go, oh, that ball goes really fast. Yeah, it goes really fast. I mean, what they can do,
Yeah.
it goes back to what we were saying before, Kate, about professional respect. You don't have any respect for what I'm doing because you think you can do what I can do, and you can't.
It's like the guys that challenge Brian Scalabrine to one-on-one, right? Like, because they look at
Oh
Brian
my God,
Scalabrine,
the best, right?
like, oh, I could definitely beat that guy. He's kind of dumpy. I look at him on the court. He kind of moves slowly, and then I realize that's with the context of him playing against these people who are also 6'9", but shredded and have this incredible athleticism. Compared to your average pickup baller, Brian Scalabrine is a specimen. He's not just like bigger. He's a athletic specimen.
I
Well, that's the
averaged
great thing,
2.3 points a game for my 10-year career, and I'm averaging 45 points a game against you. Right?
Well, yeah, when you watch pregame, I mean, you've all had the opportunity to be. When you watch pregame, they just never, ever,
They don't
ever,
miss a shot.
ever miss.
No.
They just never miss. They could go as long as you want. I got to rebound for JJ a couple summers ago when he was about to play his last season. I spent an hour doing his workout with him and rebounding for him. And I mean, honestly, just doesn't miss. It just doesn't miss.
Easiest job. You just stood under the rim and just catch it.
It was, well, his system is great because it's two guys, rebounder and a passer.
Yeah.
So I was the passer, which
Right.
was
Okay.
high pressure, by the way, because you want to deliver the,
Yeah, you
I
want
just
to right in
wanna-
the shooting pocket.
I really wanted to deliver the pass. I was so nervous about not delivering the pass in the right place because also the mode when they're in their workout mode, he was like the most relaxed, cool, mellow dude. And then the second the thing started, it was like,
It is
Full
obvious,
on.
Brian, that you and I have to make good on our deal to get our own tennis pod.
I'm in, man. We got to
a
get
tennis movie
podcast.
pod because we do have a lot of Godfather stuff to talk about at some point as well. I know that's completely your wheelhouse. We can't
I
do
love
it now.
talking to you. This
I want to
is
throw
so
one
fun.
last thing out at you
Yeah, go
before
ahead.
we let you go,
Do
though.
it.
And that is are you ready to say goodbye to our big three? Has the moment hit? Is it just time?
The big three, just so you guys know, are Djokovic and Nadal and Federer.
I thought it was like Paul
They-
Pierce. Okay, got it.
It's Paul
Yeah.
Pierce. Are you ready to
Yeah,
say goodbye to
20
Paul Pierce, Ray Allen,
They have
and Kevin
20
Garnett?
Where is this
They have
going?
Is it
20
time?
Chrysler, Ford, and GM.
Yeah.
Is it
They
time
have
to say
20,
goodbye to Kevin
20,
Garnett?
and 21 Grand Slams.
Because that is the other piece of the Alcaraz thing. It's like, let's move on now. It's time. You know, we've been waiting for one of you young chumps to come in here and take over. Nobody's been willing to do it. Now it's go time, new gen.
It's really hard, right? I am not at all ready to let Federer leave the stage. There's never been a more beautiful, more fun to watch tennis player ever. So, like, I just love watching him play so much. But it is sad, of course, to see what happens when these athletes get old. Yeah, man, time has to move on, and I want to watch this. I like the fact that Nadal was so dominant at the beginning of the year still, because he presents a really formidable coming of age conflict and challenge for this next gen. And then yes, I am ready, sadly. But I also want to leave by saying, Kate, for all of what you talk about and what you care about, the Korda sisters, it's worth like doing a deep dive, because they're incredible. And the one, Nelly, she's got the heart problems, and she's like, or blood clot problem, and she was number one. Didn't she get the number one, I think, in the world? So worth knowing about. And their brother is supposedly going to be a great tennis player.
I'm on it. I'm writing it down. Here's how I spelled it. Kourta.
How about
Korda.
Korda?
Korda.
And Dad was a great player as well.
There we go.
He was a great tennis player, right? And then
Peter Korda, yes.
Peter Korda and then they're these incredible golfers, the two sisters.
Golf.
And they look like
it's golf.
They look like models too.
No, I'm out. I
didn't say goodbye.
Tennis I can fuck with, Brian, but golf I'm out.
Wow.
I know it's an American woman who's like got to number one.
Okay, I'll consider it.
Something to consider.
Why aren't people talking about it?
Right.
Hey,
I will leave this with. I will also leave
me.
you. I will leave you with this, Brian. To that point, I was told when I was at ESPN that if I was not writing about race, and if I was not writing about the Williams sisters, there was no room for tennis in my ESPN the magazine column. It just didn't move the needle. And that was at a time when we were broadcasting all four majors. And now we do Wimbledon and the US Open. We don't do the French and the we don't do the French and the Australian Open is up in the air. But it's not even on, it's not on the big broadcasts. And if you're not writing about these people, if you're not putting them in people's face to say these people are important and this sport is important, you don't get it.
All right, you're leaving me on a bummer note, man.
I'm saying that we are going to revive this, man.
That.
We got stuff to talk about.
Good.
You've given us people to care about today. You have introduced storylines. So here we go.
Good. Let's go. We have storylines.
Exactly. And I am all in.
Everyone
right
has
now.
to watch Ohtani. That baseball's still huge, I know, but
homework.
You got to at least watch one Ohtani game.
I am in for Alcaraz. I am in for Iga Swiatek as well. I still like Muguruza, even though she gave it up today in Rome.
That's not a real name.
Muguruza is the most fascinating woman in tennis. There's no doubt about it. Harvard business degree in between winning Grand Slams. That's an incredible story, Muguruza.
And then drops the tie break and loses to Putintseva today in Rome. Tough.
She literally has a Harvard business degree, right? And she does. She fucking was number 3 in the world.
Muguruza.
All right, everybody.
There we go. Thank you, Brian. We will see you.
Fun.